Hi everyone and welcome to another recipe video. And today I'm making some properly spicy gingerbread cats, just in time for Christmas. There are just 3 days to go now, and even if you can't celebrate as you normally would like to this year, I hope you at least all get a little bit of a rest. Now onto the biscuits. I found this super cute cat biscuit cutter on eBay on the cheap, and as you can see it has little things in it that cause imprints in the dough to make the cat face and cat features. Super easy, let's go. First, you're going to want to preheat your oven, as usual, to 180 degrees C. Now we're going to make our biscuit dough. Take 100 grams of unsalted butter which has been softened at room temperature and add 100 grams of light muscovado sugar. I find muscovado sugar gets clumpy sometimes, which isn't a problem, but you do have to stir it a little bit more. If you don't like it, then you can use soft brown sugar, which is very similar and a bit looser in texture. But all you need to do is stir that butter and sugar together until it's light and fluffy. And once it is, you need to add 1 egg yolk. And keep that egg white because we're actually going to need it to make royal icing later to make those cute little scarves. This is how I separate eggs, by the way. Crack the egg, have a separate bowl that you can toss that white into, and then you cradle the yolk from shell to shell until all the white falls through. And then you can just add the egg yolk to the rest of the ingredients, setting that white aside. Give that a good stir too until it's well incorporated. Now we're going to add the sticky syrups, and sometimes people just use black treacle. I find that's a bit too strong, so I like to divide it with a bit of golden syrup. And here's my little trick to make sure that syrup doesn't stick to your measuring jug. I actually oil it a bit with some vegetable oil. So I'm making sure the vegetable oil coats my measuring cup and then I'm tipping the excess back in. Now I'm just using that to measure out my syrups. I've taken 65 millilitres of golden syrup and 60 of black treacle. And I'm going to tip this straight into the butter bowl. And as you can see, there is minimal sticking, which means minimal washing up and also more accurate measuring, because most of that syrup has now gone in the bowl. See? Nice and clean. Almost. Easier to clean anyway. Now we're going to give this a good old stir again. Feel free, by the way, to use all black treacle instead of half black treacle, half golden syrup if you want. If you like that molasses flavour, then it's up to you. You can use all black treacle. Or none, you can use all golden syrup. Now we're adding a pinch of salt and giving that a cheeky little stir too. And now for the most important ingredients, the spices. We need 1 heaped teaspoon of ground ginger, half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, half a teaspoon of ground nutmeg, just going to dump those in there. And now 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves and a half teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper. And it's that black pepper that gives it that extra bit of a zingy kick, so it's really important you add that. And don't add too much cloves, too much has a numbing effect, kind of like a local anaesthetic. Now we're adding 300 grams of plain flour, and please excuse a really awkward shot here. And then we're going to add 1 teaspoonful of baking powder. Not too much because we don't actually want these to rise, we just want them that little bit puffy, but otherwise crisp and flat. And now we're stirring it all together until it forms a smooth dough. As you can see, I'm transferring to my hands because it is getting a little bit tough to stir with that spoon. And now we have a lovely biscuit dough. At this point, make sure you have a few lined baking trays ready to go. Line them with some non-stick baking paper, and then you're going to want to flour a clean surface to roll the dough out on. This will need a little bit of trial and error on your part depending on how thick or thin your biscuit cutter is. I started with 6mm, but that was way too thick, and in the end I went for 4mm. As you can see, I've got 2 guides on my rolling pin which are exactly 6mm. And I'm rolling out really evenly here, which is what you should do, but just a tiny bit thinner. And I've got my cutter here, which is actually a little bit too shallow. As you can see, it's splodging out there, and I had some trouble getting it out, as you'll see right now. Of course, if I rolled it too thin, then it wouldn't have the features of the cat indented into it, so there's that part too. But as you can see, also too thick, and it gets jammed in the cutter, so that's no good. Let's start again. I'm getting rid of these 6mm guides and just rolling it out down to 4mm, and that should be fine. Also, I forgot to mention, do give your cookie cutter a good flouring. That will help with sticking too. And this is looking a lot better, there's no more splurge. And the tail is a little bit fiddly, so I am giving it a little bit of a poke here with the end of a spoon, just to help it out. But this time, it worked. Woohoo! So we're going to stick with 4mm. Pop that straight on the tray and do that over and over again until you use all of the biscuit dough up. And do be careful when you're moving the cookies around because you don't want them to lose their shape. This is why I do them one by one, because if you stamp too many in one go, you'll end up shifting and squishing the dough around, and you'll get misshapen cats. And this cutter together with my recipe ended up making exactly 42 cats. If you have heard, seen or read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you'll know that 42 is the answer to life, the universe and everything. So I'll count that as a good omen. Now once you've baked your cookies for 10 to 12 minutes and then cooled them, we're going to take that egg white and whisk it until it forms soft peaks, because now we're going to make some royal icing to make those cute little scarves. So now it's formed those stiff white peaks, we're going to add 200 grams of icing sugar and we're going to whip that in. And I love royal icing for piping on biscuits because it dries completely solid, so that makes it great for packing back to back and they won't stick to each other. Now this is a bit stiff, so I'm adding just a teaspoonful more of water, 2 teaspoonsful in fact. It all depends on how much egg white there is and how big the egg was, so use your judgment. We need it this kind of consistency. As you saw, it formed little ribbons on the surface, but they did sink down after a few seconds. And that is the perfect cookie decorating consistency. I'm dividing it into 3 small bowls now because I'm going to colour them. I'm keeping one bowl white but then using gel food colouring to colour the other 2 red and green, very Christmassy. I'm using gel food colouring because the watery stuff will thin down the icing. I've put all 3 colours into individual piping bags and I'm going to start by piping the horizontal part of the scarf. Taking the green and I'm piping out the outline. Now I'm going to take red and fill in that, so we've got the really Christmassy scarf. And as you can see, this is great flooding consistency and it sort of fills in all the gaps. Now finally I'm taking the white and I'm piping little polka dots on it. As you can see, I don't have a professional piping tip for this one because I didn't have enough, but just snipping the very end of the bag works too. Now I'm actually going to set that one aside and let it dry, because I want to make 3D scarves. So while I let that dry, I'm going to pipe a few more and let those dry too. And by the time you've done about 5, make sure you do them one by one so that they don't go too dry. I'm going to take that first one and pipe the other part of the scarf, and this is the part that's folded over. And because that first part dried, it will create that nice 3D effect, it won't all mesh into each other. So do it the exact same way, only now it's horizontal. Pipe those little polka dots on top, and I'm actually going to create a few little tassels, dangly bits on the bottom. So you just create a few wiggly lines there, and you have a cat with a scarf. And then you just let them dry for an hour and then they're good to go. Super cute. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video and I hope you'll join me next Wednesday for my next one. Get the full recipe on my blog tashcakes.com and find me on Instagram as tashcakestastes. Subscribe and hit the notification bell if you'd like to see more. Give this video a like if you liked it to help other people find it. Comment down below if you'd like me to make anything in particular. And I'll see you guys later. Be good, be nice, and have a lovely Christmas break.